If you have cancer, you may be too tired to even watch this video, especially if you are doing conventional treatment like chemo and or radiation. Everything is a struggle and a drain on your vital life force. Or maybe you haven't started yet, but you're about to. Or maybe you know someone who is. Maybe you started treatment and you have some fatigue, but it's still early on. Either way, you may want to prepare yourself, prevent worsening fatigue, and treat some of the fatigue that is already there. The struggle is real. So stay tuned. I am going to share with you a multitude of different natural things within different holistic categories that you can begin to try today, and some are even free. Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Matejka, naturopathic doctor, energy worker, and transformational life coach. I help those with cancer navigate their journey back to health and wellness to an even better state than before, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, and maybe even spiritually, without the confusion and overwhelm. Now, let's talk about fatigue. Fatigue. This is probably the most common side effect from conventional cancer treatment such as chemo and radiation. And honestly, I'm going to keep it real with you. It is the hardest to treat. I mean, the real way to get vital, vibrant energy is to be in the best shape and health of your life. And that's probably not your situation right now yet. So yeah, fatigue definitely happens from the lowered blood counts as a side effect of this treatment, from mitochondrial damage and decrease in mitochondria, both from the cancer and from the treatment. From the energy of your body being diverted towards healing, and from the toxic load of these things, chemo, radiation, to name a few reasons why. But we can help to make it better. So I just want to throw it out there. When you try these natural things, you may be like, well, I'm doing all this natural stuff and I'm still tired. Yeah, that's quite likely, but it most likely would be worse if you weren't doing it. So again, this might not make you feel, you know, like you were before, but it is going to help so that you don't have the worst fatigue that you could have. So try some of these natural things. I have different categories, and we'll start with some of the lifestyle ones that are basically free. Okay, I do actually want to first say, don't be overwhelmed by this info. I'm going to share a lot of different options. Just consider them options. Definitely, you don't have to do all these things. That would be crazy. But pick one that resonates, try it. Sometimes this is trial and error to see what does work for you and your unique physiology. So I also want to recommend having a holistic health professional, whether it's a naturopathic doctor, an herbalist, some sort of holistic doctor. Definitely helps because, I'm giving you some things that can be useful, but maybe those things aren't safe for you depending on other health conditions you have, other medications, supplements you're taking. So it really helps to have somebody on your team that knows exactly if what I'm recommending is indeed good and safe for you, as well as what the proper dose would be. And I'll be sharing like doses when it comes to things that were tested in studies. But otherwise, dosing is something you're going to have to ask your holistic professional about. All right, there's my disclaimer. So we're going to start with some of the lifestyle things. These are generally free. These are some more general things. You might be like, yeah. Okay, well, stay tuned and we'll get to very specific supplements. But this stuff is important too. These are like the foundations of health. So of course it starts, something that can help is diet, which is something you should probably be modifying and changing and optimizing if you have cancer anyway. But so I'm not going to get into diet very heavily here, but diet matters. Are you eating processed foods? Of course, organic's better than non-organic. A general rule of thumb is if after a meal you feel sluggish and tired, that food is probably not great for you. If you feel more energized, then that's a good sign. Now, of course, It could be your digestive system that's the issue. If your digestive system's not working optimally, then you can still feel tired even after a good, healthy, nutritious meal. So gut health is important anyways with health and even cancer. So those are things to consider. But yeah, when it comes to being fatigued, what you eat, of course, does matter. So try to eat, generally healthier. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to get into specific diets here. Most likely, you're going to want to eat more vegetables, less sugar, gluten, that kind of thing. Organic better than non-organic. Some general stuff. Whole foods, that's really the important thing. As close to nature as possible, local, seasonal is even better. GMO free, all that good stuff. And then there's hydration. Yes, just being dehydrated can add to the fatigue. You definitely want to be hydrated, especially when you're doing conventional treatments like that. You want to have your system flushed, and water, you don't even know how many physiological reactions in the body require adequate water. You definitely want to be hydrated. That alone can help energy. And then, of course, there's the other foundation, sleep. Perhaps that's an obvious one. If your sleep's not good, you're going to have more fatigue. But it's not just the amount of hours. Are you getting quality sleep? Sometimes it's quality over quantity. Delta is what you need. You need the delta brainwave sleep. This is best achieved during the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. optimally, but everyone's a little bit different. So sleep is very important, especially throughout this whole cancer journey. You definitely want to be sure that you're getting good sleep. That is where the body repairs itself. Exercise, yes, even if you have cancer, depending on what state you're in, yes, you may not be able to truly work out, but even just 10 minutes walking a day can be very helpful. So this can be aerobic exercise or resistance exercise. 30 minutes is better, but 10 minutes has effects. And you may be like, I'm too tired. You're right. It's kind of like this cycle. It's like, well, I don't have the energy to exercise. And it's like, yeah, it's one of those things where once you kind of like force yourself to do it, you do feel better and you do notice a difference. And then we have, okay, this one might sound kind of weird, but it has to do with a lab test, lowering HSCRP. So HSCRP, highly sensitive C-reactive protein. This is something that can be standardly ordered on labs. It's not typically ordered, but it's an inflammation marker. So basically what you want to do is have a nice low HSCRP. So basically doing things that lower inflammation can help, because the inflammation, right, that's like an energetic process, is going to be using up even more energy. So that's another thing. Oh, I wanted to mention fasting. Fasting. Okay. So again, this is not going to be for everybody. If you're in a cachexic state, you're losing weight, you do not want to be fasting. If you're underweight, you do not want to be fasting. But for some people, fasting is a great thing to do with chemo, especially. It can really help with the side effects. It can really, really help with the side effects. It's actually a great thing. That's a whole nother video. But, and then there's various types of fasting. You've heard the stories. People do these fasts and it's really hard the first day or two, and then they get all this energy. So if we're talking about longer term fasts, 3 days or so, then it makes sense with the energy, because you stop burning the more unclean energy and start going to ketosis, where you're burning things like proteins and fats rather than carbs. So, but even a shorter fast can be helpful too, because you're giving your digestive system a break. The digestive system exerts a lot of energy. So even just a 24-hour fast, this is something to discuss with your holistic professional. Nature immersion is the next one. Nature immersion. Yes, the healing power of nature. That's one of the naturopathic tenets. So ever notice how when you go on a nature walk sometimes, even though you're exerting yourself, you just feel rejuvenated. So this can help. believe it or not, this is one of the things that, by the way, all the things I'm mentioning, these are specifically used with cancer patients because there's a lot of things that, naturopathically, naturally can help with energy. And I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to go through the ones that I've had experience with that work, or that my colleagues and others that work specifically with cancer patients have had experience with that generally work, or things that are in studies. These are things that really are tried and true and tested on cancer patients. But again, not everything works for everybody. You got to see what works for you. And then we have, oh, this is a big one. So, mitochondrial support. Again, this could be a whole video, and it will be. I'll do one of these soon on all the different ways to support the mitochondria. If you may recall from your like 5th grade biology class, mitochondria are like the powerhouses of our cells. But there's so much more than that, and we're finding out more and more about how important and pivotal they are, and they do so much. And when it comes to cancer and toxin loads, there's always going to be some mitochondrial damage and a decrease. And, they create the energy, the ATP. So definitely things to support the mitochondria are going to help. And so this is something you can ask your holistic doctor about, do some research on. I can't get into all of it. But some things that help the mitochondria are getting actual sunlight, actual real sunlight, minimizing blue light. That's the light from our computers, our devices. Eating as locally and seasonally as possible, cold plunges, and there's certain supplements as well, like high-dose CoQ10. There's a bunch of stuff, but mitochondrial support is one. All right, that was more like the general sort of lifestyle category. And now I'm going to get into herbs, some specific herbs. And again, I'm not going to get into every single herb that's been known to be good for energy because there's a lot. But these are ones that are commonly used and successfully used with cancer patients. So we have the ginsengs, Siberian ginseng and Panax ginseng. Ginsengs are adaptogens. It's a class of herbs known as adaptogens, and adaptogens specifically help the body to handle stress and regain homeostasis and balance. So anything that's an adaptogen can be helpful, but Siberian ginseng and Panax ginseng have been known to be specifically helpful for the chemo and radiation related fatigue. By the way, fun fact, there is American ginseng grown in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is the largest producer of American ginseng, and that is not Siberian ginseng and not Panax ginseng, but basically similar properties. So you could also do that. And I'm going to save the best for last. There's also cannabis. So I don't personally prescribe or recommend cannabis for fatigue. And it does seem kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it? But there are other naturopaths that work with cancer patients that are specifically like integrative oncologists, naturopathic oncologist type. That's their specialty. And they've had success with cannabis. So it is an option if that is something available to you. You can always give it a try. Chlorella. Chlorella is a good one. So yeah, I mean, anything that has chlorophyll is going to help. It's got that oxygen. Chlorella is just a really powerful one, and a really tried and true and great one. So consider that, chlorella. And then one of my favorites that I recommend often is astragalus. Astragalus. So this is also used in Chinese medicine. It's also used in just traditional naturopathic medicine. Astragalus. There is plenty of studies that show this is a really great thing to take if you're going through cancer and conventional treatment for so many reasons that, again, I'm not going to get into all of it. I'm trying to keep this kind of succinct for you. But astragalus does help build the blood. So because there's a fall in, red blood cells, white blood cells, when it comes to doing chemo and radiation, astragalus is a good complementary medicine to take because it can help to bring those blood levels back up. And it also helps the immune system. And it's a wonderful thing to take. And the dose used in studies is typically around 500 milligrams 3 times per day. And this is usually a capsule. You can get other forms. All of the herbs I'm talking about, you can get many different forms. Tinctures, capsules, teas. Teas are going to be a little bit less effective. You get less of a dose. Okay, now I'm going to get into some other supplements that aren't necessarily herbs. They're still supplements, but they're not herbs. And I'm going to start with reishi, the mushroom. So this is also an adaptogen. Herbs, adaptogens is not just doesn't just apply to plants. It applies to mushrooms as well. And the reishi mushroom is a wonderful adaptogen, and that can also help a little bit with your fatigue. I say a little bit. For some people, it helps a lot. For others, a little. Reishi mushroom. Royal jelly. Royal jelly. So I'm not going to get into the why all these work or are good for this. And honestly, for the royal jelly one, I'm not even sure. I forgot the mechanism of action. Not suitable for vegans, of course. This is a bee product. Another one is omega-3s. This I do remember one of the mechanisms of action. It reduces IL-6, interleukin-6, a cytokine. Omegas though, omega-3s, did I say 6s? What I meant was omega-3s. They're good for so many things. So and you got to take a high dose, and you want to take a high dose if you have cancer anyway. So we're talking in the grams, no longer in the milligrams. Omega-3s. And there's also the Myers cocktail. Okay, so this is an IV treatment, intravenous. So this is going to be a stab directly into your blood. So, not exactly something you can do at home. You'd have to go to a clinic for this or your naturopathic doctor's office. But a Myers cocktail is a bunch of B vitamins, B1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 12, vitamin C, calcium, magnesium. Sometimes they're modified Myers cocktails and there's other stuff added, but these are known to help with energy. If I remember correctly, yeah, they convert nutrients to energy to help with energy metabolism because they help metabolize carbs, lipids, proteins. They help the synthesis and breakdown of carbs, fats, steroid hormones. They do DNA, help DNA synthesis and repair. They support the adrenals, blood cells, neurological system, immunity, heart, muscle. Myers cocktails, pretty good stuff if you can get your hands on one. And so as a side note, so this is perhaps important. So some people like to take guarana for energy. So if you are doing chemo or radiation, you should probably not take guarana or acetyl L-carnitine. Guarana or acetyl L-carnitine. It's just best to avoid those if you can. There can be some interactions there. Next category is off-label drugs. Off-label drugs or compounded medications. There's really only one in this category, and that's LDN, low-dose naltrexone. So this is something used commonly by naturopaths. It's a great thing to take if you have cancer or autoimmune disease. LDN does so much cool stuff. It's an immunomodulator, and yes, it can help with fatigue. So how do you get it? It does have to be prescribed, but if you're in a state where naturopathic doctors are licensed, they're familiar with where to get this because it's not like a normal medication. It's a very low dose of naltrexone, which is like something you would take for alcohol and opiate addiction. So totally different effect when you take a low dose of it. It's one of those off-label medication uses. So low dose naltrexone. And the last category is other therapies and modalities. So this might be a little more tricky because this would probably be, some of these anyway, a lot of these would be things you would have to seek out another professional. That's another service you would have to most likely get. But these are things that are wonderful additions to cancer anyway, and they can help with your fatigue. And one of those is acupuncture. Another one is massage. Believe it or not, these things can help with fatigue. Another one is red light and near infrared light. This helps with the mitochondrial issue I was speaking of earlier, helps regulate circadian rhythms. So red light, near infrared light, and really, especially the infrared light is really good to do if you have cancer anyway. So I strongly recommend that one anyways. And really any kind of energy work or mindfulness. So, and these are specific, I'm going to name specific things right now that have been specifically used by myself or colleagues successfully with cancer patients. Things like Reiki, cognitive behavioral therapy, hypnotherapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong. But really, any kind of energy work or mindfulness practices that you have, and you can do some of this on your own at home, can help. Even meditation, because it takes you out of the mind where, really everything is. Our mind controls our body. It takes you out of that mind and into a whole nother space. And I guess I'm not going to get really into all of that right now. But meditation can help. And yeah, any kind of mindfulness, energy work has the potential to really help. But just be expecting that there's going to be some kind of fatigue. Your body is going to have such a heavy burden of toxins, from the chemo, the radiation, and not to mention it's battling cancer. There's going to be some fatigue, but these things that I mentioned can help. Okay, so for fatigue of chemotherapy and or radiation, here are some tried and tested true things that I have used with success or other colleagues that work with cancer patients have used with success. In the lifestyle practices category, pay attention to diet, hydration, fasting, proper sleep, exercise, nature immersion, lowering inflammation, mitochondrial support. In the herb category, the ginseng, Siberian ginseng, Panax ginseng, American ginseng, which is grown in Wisconsin, cannabis chlorella, and most importantly, astragalus. Other supplements, reishi mushroom, royal jelly, omega-3s, Myers cocktail, but that's an IV. Compounded medication or off-label drug category, LDN, low-dose naltrexone. And last but not least, the category of other therapies and modalities, although you can do some of this stuff at home. We have acupuncture, massage, near infrared and red light therapy, and mind-body medicine and energy medicine, such as Reiki, yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, hypnotherapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, cognitive behavioral therapy, and others can help too, of course. So, yeah, these again are things. There are many things that can help energy, but these are like specifically things that work well with the fatigue from chemo or radiation. So, try something, trial and error it. It might be what you have to do, but I highly recommend hiring a professional, a naturopathic doctor, or an herbalist, or a holistic doctor of some sort that can ensure that what you're taking is safe for you, considering all of your other health conditions, issues, syndromes, etc., as well as interactions with any other medications, supplements, etc., and also to get the proper dose for you. But yeah, I hope you found, I know that was a really brief summation, but we went through it in a little more depth in the video, and you can also go into it in even more depth if you're that interested. But fatigue is probably going to somewhat still be present. That just is the facts, but you can definitely lessen it. You can definitely lessen it with the help of some naturopathic medicine. And isn't it great when we can take our power back and get some of our energy back? So take it. All right. Much love, everybody. Oh, and also you'll find a link in the description box to my free gift, which is an ebook or article, a short ebook or, well, somewhat long article on the 10 common healing factors that those who had a spontaneous remission have in common. This is what it's actually called. 10 common healing factors among cancer survivors who beat the odds. If they can do it, so can you. And it is based on data from decades of research on exactly that. What cancer patients who had a spontaneous remission, what did they all have in common? And it came down to these 10 things. So find out what they are and start employing them today. Okay, much love, everybody.